Grab your camera gear and get ready to make an awesome animal documentary. This is our review of Wild Serengeti.
Wild Serengeti is an animal drafting, pattern building game where players earn points by accomplishing scene cards, and I had a lot of fun playing with these animal pieces.
I liked a lot about this game, but some funky mechanics left me feeling kind of underwhelmed by it. We'll tell you more about it after this quick how to play.
The game is played over 6 rounds, with the later 3 rounds having special events that happen before play begins.
Players start off with 4 scene cards that have animal patterns on them that they must recreate in order to gain points and bonuses. Players will gain more scene cards throughout the game.
During each round, players take turns paying costs and taking actions. Most of the actions involve placing animals on the main board and creating patterns that their scene cards require.
When a player creates the correct pattern matching their scene card, they gain the points and bonuses from that card and add that card to their video gallery.
Players continue taking turns until they run out of money or they pass their turn for that round.
During later rounds, award ceremonies and migration events will earn players points and remove animals from the board.
At the end of 6 rounds, players add up all their points from their scene cards, and the player with the most points wins.
As we said during the unboxing video, we saw this game on Kickstarter and we backed it because I really liked all the animal meeples, and the mechanics looked like it offered something interesting that I wanted to try out.
Yeah, I think it was mostly the animal pieces that got me because, you know, we're all just little kids inside where we're like, oh, I'm an elephant. Oh, yeah, no, I'm an alligator.
Some weird alligators to use. The theme of the game is that you're a documentary filmmaker and you got to capture scenes of the different animals. So you have scene cards which have patterns, and those would be like the scenes that you would create in your documentary. And when you match up the patterns of the animal meeples on the main board, then you earn those points or those bonuses.
One thing that I enjoyed that fit with my whole idea of like, oh, lions eat this and elephants eat this, was the migration cards. So in the later rounds, the way that these are set up, the animals on the board, these cards can get drawn and then like a bunch of them can be removed, and then that can kind of reset what you were going for the first 3 rounds.
Playing this game with multiple different players, it works best as a 2-player game. It almost becomes a game of chess when it's a 2-player game. You're playing your animals, you're trying to get your scene cards. You don't always necessarily have to interact with the other player when you're playing a 2-player game. But once you get into 3 and 4 players, then you start to have to move other players' animals around, and then it can get a little bit of that take that where, ooh, you were going after that, where I'm going to move that elephant over here, and I'm going to go after this. And then it could almost become a game of back and forth. I move it, you move it, I move it, you move it, which can get a little aggravating. The other thing in a 3 and 4 player game is the board fills up quickly, so you start to run out of room. So not only is it, oh, you might have to go after someone else's animal, you almost certainly will have to move animals, even if you're not doing it on purpose, just to get the patterns or the adjacency cards that you need, because there's just nowhere else to put the animals. There aren't any other animals available, and there's no more room on the board. You have to start swapping animals or moving animals around.
So when you play, the scene cards you're working towards are face up, so everyone can see them. And initially I thought, oh man, okay, I can see everyone else's, so I know what they're going for. But you know, there's a lot happening, especially with all these animals that you have to keep track of. You're like, all right, elephants in the water, giraffes in the water, that, you know, it's kind of hard to keep track of theirs too, that, you know, like Kenny said, for the most part, if you mess with someone else's strategy, 90% accident unless you're just trying to do it.
This game does require a lot of thinking, which can lead to analysis paralysis, because depending on how many scene cards you're trying to create at the time, moving animals around, how cluttered the board is, how you're going to be able to get them into position. If you notice someone else moving the animal you need, trying to see what they're going to end up doing, maybe they'll help you out, maybe you'll end up screwing them over, you never know. So as you're building your cards, it becomes a lot of, oh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Which drags the game on. And that's one of my biggest issues that I have with this game, is a game that when you start playing it, it's a lot of fun, you're into it, but by the end of round 3 and you're like, I still have 3 more rounds to go, and we haven't even gotten to the migration cards yet, which are going to remove animals from the board and make it more difficult. I don't think I can take much more of this game. It can last 2, 3, almost 4 hours, depending on how much you're thinking about where to move the animals and how invested in the game the other players are.
Yeah, you start the round with a certain amount of coins, and you know how many you have, and you know, okay, I'm going to use this to make this move, this, so you can plan it all out. And in a perfect world, you'll make your scenes, and then you'll end your turn. But then the other players will decide what they do, and then you're just like, ugh. Like the last player who goes could have just messed everything up for you, that now you have to reformulate your plan. You're like, okay, I have this amount of money left. I can do this, this, this. That's the next best option.
Another issue I have are the scene cards. There are a lot of them, which adds a lot of variety. However, because there are a lot of them and they're all basically different, that required them to come up with some interesting bonuses that you can get. So there are some cards that will give you certain symbols, and if you have those symbols, then that'll give you a multiplier of points. However, some of the points subtract, some of the points divide, not all of them are addition or multiplication. So they're not always beneficial, or at least not as beneficial as they could be. I thought that was kind of a funky mechanic, why you would go through all this trouble creating a card to then only get 2 or 3 points out of it because you only have so many of that symbol. It should always just be addition or multiplication, depending on how difficult the card is. I would probably make that a house rule if it was up to me. I would just change all those cards. Any division is multiplication, any subtraction is addition, and just do it that way. And then there are the heart cards, which give you a lot of points at the end. However, if one person is following the heart strategy and they just get all these hearts, the other players start looking at it and go, okay, well, there's still 2 more rounds, but I'm never going to be able to catch up to your heart, so I'm already going to lose. Why do I want to finish this game? So there needs to be some adjustments in the rankings, power, abilities of the cards that you get with the scene cards.
Right along the lines of reaching a point where, okay, this just happened and now this player just jumped ahead like 20 points. I experienced that, and I did have the moment where I was like, is it even worth it? Because, you know, at that halfway point in the game, it was just like, oh, okay. I mean, I could just keep playing, but really, that's going to be very difficult for me to get 30 points in one go. So, I don't know. At the time, it did go through my head, and I was like, all right, should we? I mean, you pretty much won, right? Should we just keep doing this, or what?
Another example of a mechanic in the game that allows a player to take too far of a lead are the awards. Kind of what Lee was talking about, where halfway through the game, something happens that awards somebody enough points to take a huge lead. That mechanic is the award ceremonies, which happen at the beginning of the 4th and 6th round. And what happens is there's a certain animal, and the player with the most of that animal will get ×2 of that animal. So if I'm playing the game and I'm going after the wildebeest for the first award ceremony, and I have 10 wildebeest, I'm going to get 20 points. I have more wildebeest than that, I can potentially get a lot of points. Same thing happens at the beginning of the 6th round, which I get. That's a mechanic in games I can understand. However, they come at the beginning of the round. So during the 6th round, you're like, oh, I didn't get first, I didn't get second. What's the point? I didn't finish all these scene cards. I could have gotten more jackals, or I could have gotten more of whatever the animal is. However, the round is over, so now I'm not going for that. So now the only thing worth points now are if I can go after hearts or just get sheer point cards, which there aren't enough of the just point cards in the deck. So the award ceremonies need to come at the end. That's another house rule I would make if you're going to play this game.
Overall, I love the production value. I really like playing with the pieces, like the actual animals, like I said before, like, you know, rhino, rawr. Mechanics-wise, with the pattern building and the drafting, I'm always a fan of those. I will say it did seem, you know, the wind out of my sails, like you said earlier, towards the middle of the game and on, so I was just like, eh. I mean, I'll probably play it again, but, you know, not anytime soon, so I'll give it a 6.5.
Overall, I like a lot about this game. I love halfway through the game, so it's almost like half a game that I enjoyed. So I kind of want to give it a 5 based on that. It's half a game, so you get half of a 10, so you get a 5. However, the production value does bring it up, and because it's easily fixable with just some house rules just to make it a lot better, I'm going to give it a 7. But the fact that I have to make house rules does kind of like, it's kind of a iffy 7. If you play with the rules of the game, I'm giving it a 5. And Juliana gives it a 7. And that was our review of Wild Serengeti.
What'd you think? You ready to capture those scenes of those animals in their natural habitats? Let us know in the comments below.
And if you're enjoying our content, please like this video and subscribe to our channel.
Until next time, I'm Lee.
I'm Kenny. Now go party like a board gamer.